right, thank you everyone. Delicious lunch prepared in the healthiest way possible. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of the science behind the meal that we just ate, why these foods were selected, why the ingredients make a difference for brain health, and the evidence behind all that. So it's going to be a little busy, but we need to keep time on, so apologize if there's a little extra noise. So diet and cognitive health. Our diet helps shape more than our body. It affects our brain health, cognition, and the risk for cognitive impairment as we age. Many diets are proposed for brain health, but again, the question is, which one's actually making a difference? This is the question that we get in clinic all the time. What should I be doing? What is the magic bullets that I can put on a plate? And so today we're going to explore some of the diets, the evidence behind them, the key similarities, and how you can apply it to your life and your lifestyle. So why does diet matter? Again, this sort of follows the pattern that we've seen throughout the first half of the day. The body requires on fuel, active nutrition to provide the building blocks to rebuild the brain and maintain effective communication between your cells. It needs to rebuild and facilitate the repair, whether or not that's neurotransmitter, lymphatic drainage, or whether or not that means actually just generating it from scratch. You have to detoxify after a day of heavy lifting and excessive neuronal overuse. So better diet, better brain, eating whole foods, plant-based foods, and healthy fats have been shown to help slow down cognitive impairment, and we'll talk about what that actually means in the real world. So where does this information come from? The majority of these diets, these recommendations come from blue zones. What are blue zones? Blue zones are areas in the world where people live significantly longer on average relative to the global population. These are areas that often, not just here and there, often have people that live to 90, 100, but more importantly, have low risks of chronic disease, diabetes, hypertension, but most importantly, dementia. Blue zones show us that it is possible through longevity, brain health, and maybe a little bit of genetics, to actually maintain brain health, maintain full body health through lifestyle and diet. So our goal is to dissect these different areas to understand what makes them special, what makes them unique, and what we can learn from them. So first off, we're going to talk about Greece, where the Mediterranean diet was first conceived.
Ikaria was a very poor island, so they were eating what they could find in their gardens. They were utilizing herbs, vegetables that they had. When we go to Karimalis restaurant, you'll see they still focus on the traditional diet. All of their recipes are plant-based throughout the week. Sunday's the only day of the week they cook meat. So why do people make it to 90 here in Ikaria? The lifestyle, the diet, how much sleep people get, the low stress levels, the exercise. The healthiest lifestyle practices have been ingrained in daily life here for centuries. This is Therma. It's one of the many hot springs that Ikaria has. It's one of my favorite places. The waters are radioactive. Do your research and check with your doctor if it's something that you want to participate in. But I think I'm going to. As you'll see, Ikaria is one big mountain and there are hills everywhere. And so traditionally, people were walking up and down mountains for miles for centuries, and they still do this. Some of my favorite things to do are to go to the beach, probably Mezakti. They have surfing there, volleyball. My yaya still goes on walks with her cane, even though she's 91 years old, to go and visit her friends. There's a big sense of community here, and that really holds everyone together. In the evening, in the summertime, one of my favorite things to do is go to a paniyiri. It's a festival where the home village will host. They'll make food for everyone. There's music and dancing all throughout the night, and people will dance even until the sun comes up.
So, what can we learn from them? So, the Greek islands, the Aegean Sea, area with somewhat inhospitable land at times, very rugged, very mountainous, but people thrived and people have lived there for countless millennia. These areas were often plagued by pirates about 1,000 years ago, constantly raided, so the areas people were having a hard time to struggle. They often ate largely plant-based food because it was hard to get enough land to herd animals or have large livestock, but they thrived. Usually through a mixture of fish, because again, it's an island, plant-based foods because they had to grow it locally. But more importantly, it's the lifestyle that is implicit in that kind of world. These are individuals that are walking up and down mountains every single day from the moment you can walk to the moment you can't, 90, 100 years old. They're still walking. They're actively moving through their environment because it's away from the modern world. Island life is different. It's calmer. It's quieter. You run at your own pace. You run at the pace of the natural world. And of course, because it is a closed-knit community, you can't get out. Everything is about community. Everything is about being a family member or a friend to somebody. So these areas are highly conservative in the sense that they are maintaining a lifestyle that was present probably 500 years ago. And they're still living good lives. They're eating plant-based foods, whole grains, olive oil, that does grow well in these areas, plant-based diet, fish-based diet, but more importantly, low stress and strong community. Does this pattern persist? Let's talk about Sardinia.
The little town of Ochsner, where we are sitting, is the record holder for longevity, not only in the Sardinian blue zone, but for blue zones throughout the world. What are the similarities between the different blue zones across the world?
Sono popolazioni che sono rimaste isolate.
So for those of you who can't read or can't hear, basically what they're talking about, how in some of these Sardinian communities, the areas are highly confined to certain regions. They're not affected, like islands, in the outside world. So they're maintaining cultural habits and behaviors that have been present since the Neolithic period. Not hunter-gatherer, farmer, and a mixture of herding. As a consequence, their foods, their diets are very much based upon that kind of lifestyle.
The mode of life, modus vivendi of the Neolithic shepherds. Here, there is another island.
That are healthy for the gut biome, which Thong is going to reference later this afternoon. Red wine in moderation, but more importantly, just like we saw in the Aegean, a lot of physical exercise, a lot of moving constantly throughout the day, not necessarily running to get your heart rate up, but constant, steady, slow movements. And because, again, this closed-knit community, this town bound by the mountains, not bound by the ocean, we have a very strong intergenerational community, which decreases stress as we get older and maintains longevity. What about Japan?
Emiko is located in Ogimi, a village of 3,000 inhabitants known to host a record number of centenarians. By observing the recipes of her elders, she created the longevity menu based on seasonal vegetables.
What we grow in the vegetable garden, we cook and the customers taste it right away. We have a way of life where the vegetable garden and the kitchen are closely linked. And as a nutritionist, I feel that the food is very fresh.
Their average age is 91 years old. They're still working as a dancer, a tofu producer, and an association president. Kikue, Shiu, and Yukiko have an inexhaustible appetite for life.
I don't try to live as long as possible. It happens naturally because we all gather, laugh and cry together. And that's what's good. That's what we say.
That's it. That's really the way of life in Okinawa.
I think the secret of longevity is not to worry and move on.
So again, we're beginning to see, again, common trends. Slow life, a little bit removed from the beaten path, away from the globalized world that we live in. Foods that are bound to the seasons and bound to local dietary habits. In all fairness, the Okinawa Islands also have a very rich soil. As a consequence, the foods tend to be a little bit more nutritionally dense than elsewhere, so they can survive on a very plant-based diet, seaweeds, sweet potatoes, but they have a lot of fermented foods, which are again going to come back to the gut biome in the next lecture. Turmeric tea is commonly drank during the hot season, green tea during the later seasons. Fish, high concentrations of omega-3s, but again, this lifestyle, as you could hear from these lovely women, eating in moderation, living in moderation, staying calm, and connected to community. Belonging and purpose, ikigai, is a major component of not only their lifestyle, but their way of approaching problems, which includes the natural stressors of life. And one more place to learn from.
At the depths of the Nicoya Peninsula is a kingdom of traditional Costa Rican culture. The advances of civilization on this territory coexist with the century-old lifestyle of the Nicoya peasants. People here still cook food on open fires. The basic ingredient of national cuisine, maize, that is corn, is ground using simple appliances. In the Pizarro family, this maize grows on their own field. Everyday agricultural activities set the rhythm of life. Hot climate determines the strict daily schedule. The oldest Pizarro, Don Jose, has obeyed this regime for more than 100 years.
So again, goes back to, even though this one is less so bound by mountains or bound by ocean, now by the jungle, they're actually separate. Again, off the beaten track. A lot of people in this area speak about how city life is just not them. They stay away where it's calm and quiet in the jungle. Food, again, local, in the local region, the local earth that they grow, they build, they nourish themselves. And because of this insulated community, they still have that family-centered life, that intergenerational support that provides them the low stress they need as they get older. What we learned from these 4 different areas are basically a recurring pattern: low stress, plant-forward way of thinking about diet, daily movement, family structure, intergenerational support, moderation in life expectancies, moderation in food, social belonging, ikigai, simple whole foods, and lifelong physical activity. Make your brain well just like they make your body well. Slow down, eat simple, walk daily, stay connected, belong deeply, and live with purpose. Now that said, most people look at that, roll their eyes. What does that actually apply to my life? So, what do you specifically are we asking you to do? Try to increase your dietary intake of plants. Vegetables at every meal. Use olive oil as a primary fat when possible. Meat occasionally, not central to the dish. Stop before you're full. Harabachibu, i.e. don't eat till you're already full. You've already overeaten. Higher risk for heartburn, GERD, etc. Smaller portions, slower meals. Be mindful of what you eat. Move all day. I'm doing that right now. It's not a matter of going to the gym and pushing your heart to the limit for 30 minutes and then go back home and eat some Doritos by the TV. You need to quietly move consistently. Downshift. Again, this is important. This is autonomic control. Blood pressure, calm, peacefulness, intentional pauses that can come in the form of a nap, a prayer, a reflection, or meditation. And more importantly, stay connected. If there's no reason to be around, then there's no reason to stay. We need each other, and you have to remember that being part of a community is part of a reason to be around. Ikigai, sense of purpose, keeps us going. So it's not just a diet, it's about a pattern of life, it's a lifestyle. That said, we're Westerners, so we're looking for that magic bullet, so we focus on one side. Let's talk about that one side. So when the dietary component of this, we talk about the 3 big diets that have the most body of evidence behind them: the Mediterranean, the DASH diet, and the MIND diet. Mediterranean diet is what it is. Copy over from the first blue zone areas, traditional eating style of the Mediterranean, emphasizing high olive oils, fish, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. The DASH diet was a modification of the Mediterranean diet, focused more so on blood pressure and heart disease, and emphasized a bit more on low sodium, lean protein, high fiber. The MIND diet took the lessons we learned from the Mediterranean and the DASH diet, created a hybrid that focused more so for cognitive health, focused mainly beyond berries and leafy greens. How are they similar? They're all plant-forward, whole food dietary patterns, high intake of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, emphasize on healthy fats. That's things that have a high concentration of omega-3s. That's things like avocados, coconuts, anchovies, sardines, almonds, coconuts, reduced processed foods. What they've all been shown to do is decrease neuroinflammation, decrease oxidative stress, increase vascular health and perfusion, and increase metabolic stability. Shared outcomes, what do they all do? Lower risk of cognitive impairment, lower risk of dementia, and lower risk of long-term cognitive decline. How are they different? MIND diet was specifically designed with the idea that we're trying to emphasize brain health. Prioritizes leafy greens and berries, show a strong benefit even at moderate compliance. Today's meal was focused on the MIND diet. Mediterranean diet, most proven overall. Again, that's across the board for other conditions other than cognition, emphasis on olive oils, fish, nuts, social eating. Strongest effect on cardiovascular risk factors. DASH diet, focus on low sodium, low saturated fat, highest impact on hypertension. What does the actual data tell us? Well, MIND diet, again, evidence with a grain of salt, but not too much salt because it's the MIND diet. Lower risk of Alzheimer's with moderate adherence, probably the highest at about 53% with high adherence. Slows cognitive decline in certain retrospective cohorts by upwards of 7.5 years. Overall, low risk of cognitive impairment as we get older, 17 to 22%. Mediterranean diet, most well-researched, so take the evidence from the MIND diet with a grain of salt. 27% lower risk from meta-analyses. It's been shown to slow down all-cause cognitive impairment based upon cohorts. Best evidence through randomized controlled trials, but randomized controlled trials, be clear on this, don't go for that long. So when we talk about a lifestyle that's measured over decades, it's hard to do that kind of study. DASH diet, like we said before, there has been some benefit for low risk for Alzheimer's and dementia risk overall, but it's more focused on the vascular side of things. And you can see from the graphs on the left, reduced risk for dementia and Alzheimer's, with high adherence, the MIND diet blows most of them away. Mediterranean diet, when you look on cognitive impact, all cause, very close to the MIND diet. Things that you want to emphasize here, you don't have to be too strict. All these diets have similar properties. They're emphasizing the same thing. So it's more than just diet. If you take one thing from today's talk, it's all these things share similar properties, but diet is just one part of brain health. It's lifestyle. MIND diet has the strongest link across the various diets, but they all hold very similar properties. High adherence means greater protection. Avoid extreme diet fads, keto, Ornish, or Bredesen. They lack scientific backing and have mixed results. Blue zone populations thrive on lifestyle habits, not just diets. So longevity isn't about what you eat, it's about how you live. And having said that, thank you for your time.